There he goes. George Pickens. Mike Tomlin ignored the warning signs coming into the draft. And we've gone over this many, many times in 2022. I think Tomlin thought that he had outsmarted the rest of the league by taking Pickens 52nd. Bruce Feldman of The Athletic reported at that time going into the draft that this dude had more red flags around him than the old Soviet Union, Bob. He had scouts. He had personnel people saying, I wouldn't touch this guy. He's been enabled his whole life. And the thinking went, as it often erroneously does, that in Pittsburgh, guys will find themselves. Guys will thrive. Potentially problematic players will be put in line by the culture here when, in fact, the exact opposite is true. They'll be emboldened and enabled by the culture here. And that's exactly what happened with George Pickens. That's the story to me, is that Mike Tomlin ignored the warning signs, enabled George Pickens the whole way, and this is what he got. His team moving on from Pickens before, I think, an expected implosion in camp or in the season. However, Bob, you, Jason Mackey, might be correct. Maybe this was the wrong thing to do. I know you wanted them to keep Pickens. Jason Mackey wrote this, I think, yesterday, that keeping Pickens was the way to go, that you're leaving yourself short, not taking advantage of a situation with all this talent. What's your take on it today? Should they have kept him?
Well, I say that based on what I thought their plan was for this year, which is you have, at some point, a 41-year-old quarterback coming in, trying to get as much out of him as you can on a team that has aging stars. They're trying to win as soon as they can. And if you look at George Pickens, you can say what you want about all that, and I agree. He's immature, he's entitled, and that's a problem. However, in 3 years in Pittsburgh, you had 15.4 yards per catch. You had 18.1, 15.3, almost 1,200 yards in 2023. He has the potential still to be a difference maker. And I thought paired with DK Metcalf, that those two, regardless of what the contract says, because, that's going to be a problem one way or the other at the end of it. I thought they'd pair them together for the same reason they're bringing in Rodgers, for the same reason they keep TJ, and they have Minka and Cam. They're trying to suck something out of this before it's too late. Now, having said that, I still believe they're on the lookout for another wide receiver here, and it may be via trade. We talk about trades leading up to next year in the quarterback. How about a trade to acquire an established wide receiver now who may be under contract, who can complement? I don't know. I'm just saying. DK Metcalf plus somebody else. There's rumors that Alan Lazard is not happy in New York and that Aaron Rodgers would like to play with him. How about Alan Lazard coming here in a trade with the Jets? There are things out there that could happen, plus a lot of free agents. What I'm saying to you is they probably came to the conclusion that they have something else in the works, and they're not going to deal with his contract at the end of the season or during the season because, as you correctly say, George Pickens could be a real pain to deal with. And if he decides to hold out, not show up, pout, that can affect everything that happens this year. But as far as the pure talent, that's why I wanted him to stick around to complement Metcalf.
Yeah, man. Nobody denies the talent, and at times he was quite productive, but I don't think you win with guys like that. I could sit here for an hour. Late to the Chiefs game on Christmas Day. Ray Fittipaldo reporting that he's late to a lot of things. Tomlin, of course, enabled all that. My God, he blocked. If Pickens blocked for his teammates the way that Tomlin blocked for Pickens, they would have called him Hines Ward Jr. limits. I mean, that's all Tomlin did his whole career, is run interference for this guy. He couldn't even admit he benched him in the Cowboys game. He delivered some load of crap about snap management. You just heard the clip. Tomlin couldn't even acknowledge that he was indeed late for a Christmas Day game when Benzie dropped in from the top rope. And, Bob, I could also talk about his refusal to block at the goal line in Indy. And
there's a lot, right.
Then explain it away by saying, I didn't want to get injured. How do you think that plays in a locker room? Wearing the F word on his face in the Cowboys game on national television and having Art II just sit there and watch the game and not order him to remove it. Jogging on routes in that game. Choosing to pick a fight rather than do his job on the final play in Cleveland. Not moving at all on what became an end zone interception against the Chiefs. All the in-game tantrums, fighting with his own fans, fighting with the other team's fans, having his teammates and former Steelers take shots at him left and right. It was all just sort of missed by Mike Tomlin. Everything's okay here. You remember 12 games into his career, 12 games in, this dude felt enabled to scream on the sidelines, Atlanta, throw me the blanking ball. That's what he was screaming. So that was his first babysitting mission, where Cam Hayward had to take time out of what he was doing to babysit little George on the sidelines. And then Tomlin, after the game, you might remember his quote from after that game when people said, what about George on the sidelines? I'm not going to make that a negative no matter how silly I think the commentary is. I laugh at that. Well, Bob, nobody's laughing now, especially not Mike Tomlin, because this dude, not only did he not make it to a second contract, he didn't make it past his first contract, to his first contract. I actually credit the Steelers for moving on from this pending implosion, but I discredit them greatly for ignoring all the red flags back in 2022. But nobody denies Pickens' talent. He may go to Dallas and flourish. I don't think so.